And bright stars through the perilous fight. All the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the stars sprinkle then not yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you, and I am with you on the TECN Network. That's right. That is the Exceptional Conservative Network. I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's been a little while since I've been around, and I apologize because, well, you know, I was in Europe for a little bit, and then I was not well. I was sick for a little bit, and so it just threw me off and threw off everything that I've been doing. And I'm trying to get back to my regular routine. So I apologize that I haven't been around as much as I should be. That being said, though, there has been a lot that's been going on and a lot to speak about, and I want to talk about it. And hopefully you're going to join me with this, because I was listening to the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic National Debate, and it was insane. It was insulting. It was aggravating. And as someone who is a political junkie, I listen to everything in politics. I listen to every side. I listen to arguments, debates, to video of every one of the major political parties, whether it's Democrats, progressives, the Democratic Socialists, the Conservative Party, Libertarians, Republicans, Conservative Republicans, Tea Party. I listen to them all. I listen to everybody because it's important to hear what everyone has to say. And when I do that, I get a better understanding of all the issues that everyone is trying to promote. And I'm listening to the Democratic 2020 race, and I am hearing insanity. I am hearing aggravation. And now we're hearing about the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And we're hearing that story come back in. And I have to ask the question, why? Why is Brett Kavanaugh another story? Why is that an issue that's back into the mainstream today? Because you really should wonder, what is this all about? And I'm going to tell you what I think it is based on the facts that are available to us. And you can tell me if you agree, you can tell me if you disagree, if you think I have everything right or if I got everything wrong. So let's start off with very simply looking at what's going on out there right now. According to Real Clear Politics, what we can see and what we can tell directly is that of the candidates, there are only 6 candidates that really have any impact. And that happens to be Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and then at that point, it's a tie between Yang and O'Rourke. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a tie for 6. And essentially what you're looking at are people who are trying to guide all of politics from the Democratic Party. And most of them are not well respected, are not well listened to, even among Democrats. Democrats have major issues with these people. Progressives have major issues with these people. And it's very simple. We have seen that Joe Biden, who is supposed to be the moderate and the leader of this party, has been on a downturn. He has been consistently trending down since his peak. And he currently sits at 26.8% today, September 15th at, 10 o'clock at night. And I know most people are watching football right now. That's fine. But what we do know for sure is that he's been trending down, and Bernie Sanders has equally been generally trending down as well. And he currently sits at 17.3%. Then we have Elizabeth Warren, the fake Pocahontas, the fake American Indian, who is looking to give everybody free stuff left and right. She's at 16.8%. She's on the way up. There's Kamala Harris, who's been struggling at 6.5%. She got a little bit of a peak, and now she's been down. But she's doing better than Pete Buttigieg, who has nothing to claim other than his gay status. And you have Andrew Yang, who wants to give everyone free stuff and free money. And then you have Beto O'Rourke, finishing up the group at 2.8%. And no, I don't count Cory Booker. Cory Booker is not a factor. He's at 2.3%. He's been at 2.3% for the last 9 months. No one cares. No one is interested. No one is getting behind the Cory Booker bandwagon. Equally, you could say for Gabbard and Klobuchar at 1.3 and 1.2% respectively, they're not going anywhere. They have never been going anywhere. They're never going to go anywhere because they offer nothing that is of interest to Democrats, let alone Republicans. So that's the nature of what we're looking at right now. That is the nature of the Democratic Party. So with that being said, let's think about this for a second, because it's going to factor into what's going on with Kavanaugh. So we have Democratic candidates who have come out, and as you just saw, and I'm going to show it to you again, Andrew Yang comes out in the September Democratic debate, and his only thing that he can offer is, I'm going to pay people money to be involved in this election. I'm going to pay people money, implicitly implying that they're going to vote for him. Now, you can disagree with me. You can tell me, Mike, you don't think so. And I can tell you that very much so. According to CBS News, in looking at their story, they found it was Deborah Hellman, a law professor at the University of Virginia School of Law, who doesn't think that for any reason Andrew Yang is promising anything that's illegal. I disagree. Because when I look at the law, and when I look at 18 U.S. Code 597, which has to deal directly with this, oops, there it is, 18 U.S. Code 597, the expenditures to influencing voting, it says very clearly in there that whoever makes or offers to make an expenditure to any person, either to vote or withhold their vote, or to vote for or against any candidate, that it falls under this, and they should be in prison for at least 1 year. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually, to be very honest about it. I'm not sorry at all. Andrew Yang said he wants to pay people $1,000, and that he's going to pay even more people $1,000 per month if they vote for him. That is the implicit explanation of what he said. If you vote for me, you will get $1,000 per month. And to show that I'm being serious, I'm going to give a bunch of people $1,000 a month to start off with. That is an implicit purchase of a vote. That is a crime. Period. But it's okay. Because Democrats said, well, we're okay with that. It's not really saying that you're going to, he didn't say, you have to vote for me for this money. He said, I'm going to give it to you. But he's implying that he's going to give it to you because he wants to give it to everyone if he wins, if he is elected. You only get this money if he's in power. And that's a problem. It's a problem because Andrew Yang can't even explain where this $3.1 trillion that it would cost to do what he says is coming from. He has no idea. His best idea is print more money. You know what? We've seen that happen before. It's called the Weimar province in Germany, and we saw what happened there. It was called inflation. Wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread. It doesn't work. It isn't a good idea. This is a problem. It is a major problem. But it's okay because he's a Democrat and he's Asian. So you can't pick on him. Because if you say anything, well, you must be racist. And if you say anything, well, you must be against poor people. You're an elitist. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Because people say that all the time. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not an elitist. I'm not rich. I'm not a racist. What I am is someone who actually pays attention. And you can't pay for what Andrew Yang is trying to shovel out there. But he is trying to imply it, and he is trying to buy votes with it. And that's why Amy Klobuchar and so many others on the stage were laughing and saying, it was Amy Klobuchar who laughed out loud about this, and it was Pete Buttigieg, the mayor, Pete Buttigieg, who said, well, that's something different, because no one dared do something like that, because it is inherently illegal. And if the moderators of ABC were doing their job, they would have arrested Andrew Yang at that moment and dragged him off the stage. But that's not the case. And it's the same thing when we look at what about Beto O'Rourke, the fake Hispanic, a man who is so upset with his own upbringing, with the fact that he was born white, that he's apologized for it. And Beto O'Rourke has vowed to take your guns, to take everyone's guns. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15. And if you think he's going to take the AR-15, there is nothing that says he's going to stop there. Absolutely no reason why he would stop at just an AR-15. He said he'd take AK-47s. Why wouldn't he take a shotgun? Why wouldn't he take a handgun? Why wouldn't he take any firearm that's been banned by the New York SAFE Act or any other firearm? Why wouldn't he use the full force of the government to impose his personal feelings on every single American, especially after he's removed the ability of those Americans to be able to defend themselves against his government? Think about that. That's an important thing. That is a critical thing. This is terrifying. These are terrifying things. I was terrified when I listened to the 2020 Democrats talking about what they believe is what they want. Their wants, their desires, not what the nation needs, not what is important for the nation, but what they personally feel is the best thing for them and their political point of view. You don't get to do that. There are 160 million Americans. Roughly half of all of America owns a firearm or two. And we own 350 million firearms in America legally. Legally. And there are, on average, less than 20 incidents of mass shootings per year. That's school shootings, that's everything. You're talking about 20 of them in a year. On average, with 100 people per year being killed or otherwise injured. Do the math. That's 99.999 plus percent of legal gun owners that are not a problem and have never been a problem. And yet Beto O'Rourke believes that it is in his purview as a president to forcibly take your guns, to remove your personal rights to property. And if he can take that property, what other property can he take? And why wouldn't he? That's a big question. Why would he not take it? If he can, why wouldn't he do it? Because no one wants to ask that question. And yet everyone should ask that question. Where is the limit? Where is that stop, because the full stop should be, it's the Second Amendment. You can't do that. And quite honestly, to be all fair, Joe Biden did mention that. It's the Constitution, as he said to Kamala Harris, as he said in response to Beto O'Rourke. It's the Constitution. You can't just take people's property. You can't just destroy the Second Amendment. People have an inherent, inalienable right to protect themselves from the government, as well as those criminals and the deranged who would try and take their lives. But Beto O'Rourke doesn't seem to believe that. And he doesn't want you to believe that, because he's basing it on emotion. Andrew Yang is basing it on emotion. Andrew Yang is looking for greed. And Beto O'Rourke is looking for fear. And these are the motivations for the 2020 election. And you know what I think is really important? Not one of the candidates, other than Joe Biden half-heartedly, no one was saying you can't do this, that these are illegal things, that this shouldn't be the process. No, Joe Biden's saying, well, there's a different way we need to do it. We need to do it with a different set of laws. We need to have certain limits out there. He wasn't saying that this is a stupid idea. He wasn't saying that this is antithetical to America. He's saying that you have to do it a different way. You can't use the full force of government to take away the rights of Americans, because that's what happens in Venezuela. Venezuela took away the rights of the people and uses the full force of the government to kill over 5,000 Venezuelans over the last 2 years. That's according to the New York Times. I didn't make it up. Look it up. It's the New York Times that said that. But I'm concerned here. I'm very concerned here. And you should be very concerned here. Because it's not just about greed. It's not just about guns. It's not just about government taking over. No, no, no. If it were only those things, America could probably survive. And we would do well. We would just ignore these individuals and they would not move forward. But we're seeing that this is more about things that are completely unrelated, that are useless, that are dangerous. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Do you remember Brett Kavanaugh? Because I remember Brett Kavanaugh. I remember the trials against Brett Kavanaugh, because the Supreme Court hearings for Brett Kavanaugh were a trial in the public court, in the public opinion. He didn't get due process. It was someone made an accusation against him, and because the accusation was made, he was guilty. That is, in essence, what it is for the Me Too movement. And I'm not saying that women don't have a case. I'm not saying that women haven't been abused. I'm not saying that there isn't any reason why Me Too makes sense. What I am saying is it has been abused politically to use it as a weapon, where someone is accused and without any reason beyond the accusation, without any proof beyond the accusation, that this individual is now supposed to have their lives destroyed and that they can never again do anything. And that is terrifying. It is as terrifying as saying that the government is going to use its full force to take away your property. It is as terrifying as hearing someone say that they're going to buy your vote. These are terrifying thoughts. And every American, I don't care if you're a Democrat, a progressive, you're a libertarian, you're a conservative, you're a Republican, I don't care where you are in the political spectrum, this should terrify you. This is what is being proposed for 2020 of America. Greed, emotion, fear, and using sex as a weapon, and sexism and gender as a weapon. This is what the Democratic Party is offering America. And you should be terrified. You should be absolutely aggravated. You should be angry. I am. Maybe you disagree with me. Okay, please explain to me how it is not an implicit offer that if you vote for Andrew Yang, he's going to pay you. That is the offer he is making. That is implicit in what he is saying. That is the implicit conclusion of what he has said. And you're telling me that that's not trying to buy a vote? You're telling me that Beto O'Rourke, Robert O'Rourke, the fake Hispanic, is not saying that he said, and he has admitted clearly, he will use the full force of the United States government against its citizens, for those citizens who are law-abiding and have a possession of something he doesn't like. We're not talking about criminals. We're talking about regular, average, your neighbor. Every other American, by average, owns a firearm. And he is talking about going into every other home with the full force of the government to take property from Americans because they own it. That is the same thing as saying, if you happen to own a car, if you happen to own a blue jeans, then the government is going to break down your door and take that away from you because you are a criminal, because somebody doesn't like it. Think about that. There is no difference. You own a car. I'm going to take your car because of the ecological impact of your car. I don't like that. And since you don't have an electric car, you are a bad guy because you're adding to climate change. And if you're adding to climate change, we need to take your vehicle. And since you won't give it up, we're going to use the full force of the government to take that car from you. What is the difference between that and a firearm? There isn't one. You can try and say, well, it's about guns and it's about safety. More people die from accidents with vehicles than all gun deaths multiplied. Think about that. Drunk driving, texting while driving, just regular accidents with vehicles. You put them all together, guess what? More people die from incidents with a motor vehicle than all people who have died, whether it's suicide or gang violence or drugs or just mass shootings. Put it all together, there's still more people who die because of a vehicle than happen because of a firearm. And guess what? If they said they're coming after you because you have the wrong type of vehicle, you would be outraged. Why wouldn't you be outraged when they're saying you own the wrong type of firearm? Or more importantly, you own a firearm. There is no difference at the end of the day. And we should all be terrified of that. But I'm trying to tie this back to Kavanaugh and the recent revelation that Brett Kavanaugh has now been accused yet again of having a sexual misconduct, and that there is a witness to an act of sexual misconduct. Now put it in this environment. The public is rejecting Andrew Yang. That's a fact. Andrew Yang, after several months of being on the scene, has not led anything. He hasn't even hit 5%. The public rejects him. The public rejects Robert Beto O'Rourke, who's over at about 2.8%. The public rejects most of the Democrats that are out there. There are well over 15 different Democrats that the public wholesale rejects and has no interest in, not counting the ones who've dropped out of the race, and there will be more. But their goal has been to move everyone and move the discussion to the furthest left fringe. And they want people to be more socialist. They want people to be more progressive. They want people to be stuck with only one choice, theirs. And when I look at these people and I listen to them talking about Brett Kavanaugh, an individual who was tried in the court of public opinion, who was presented as some incredible monster, and yet No proof was ever brought against him. He withstood all investigations into this. No proof was made. He is innocent and exonerated because he is innocent, and no crime was found, and he became a Supreme Court justice, as he should have. And we have to now go through yet another cycle of this. That's like saying, well, Andrew Yang, we can go through another cycle of Andrew Yang saying he can give people money and they should vote for him, which is an implicit purchase of their votes. We can go through another cycle of Beto O'Rourke saying the government will take your property because he doesn't like the property you own. And they don't like the politics and the positions of Brett Kavanaugh. And so he must be a sexist. He must be a racist. He must be a drunkard. He must be. Because if he is not, and if you cannot take someone's property, and if you cannot buy votes, well, then what are the Democrats really standing for? What is there left? That's a question people should ask. What else is there? What are the Democrats truly offering when you boil it down and you take it away and say, well, if we don't do that, what else is there? If I'm not a sexist, if I'm not a racist, if I'm not some greedy capitalist, what else are you offering? What else are you telling me? And that's a really, really important question. But let's really think about Kavanaugh. The news has been that there is now a report from an individual, a student at Yale University, who says that Brett Kavanaugh acted in a less than reputable manner. He committed sexual, can't say sexual assault, but was sexually inappropriate in his actions while he was at a party and drunk at Yale. Okay. So let's think about this. This came about when Brett Kavanaugh was being confirmed. The FBI entertained and investigated every single claim. Every claim. The FBI investigated claims that made no sense whatsoever. We had several claims that were recanted shortly after they were made because they were so outrageous and it was so obvious to disprove them that they were dismissed. And the individuals who made the claims, yes, Michael Avenatti's a client amongst them, that they went nowhere. So at the same time that every claim out of the woodwork was being presented to the public and the FBI was looking into them, this claim was made by a Yale classmate. Why didn't the FBI investigate it then? Why wasn't it made public then? If there were any credibility to this claim whatsoever, independent of whether or not any other claim against Kavanaugh was correct, no matter whether Justice Kavanaugh was guilty or innocent of any other claim that was made, if the claim from Yale, from this Yale student, was correct, then why was the FBI silent? Why did they not investigate it? The credibility question is paramount. And I've had several people who've been questioning me this on Twitter, saying, well, Mike, you just don't understand. Well, okay, I don't understand. Please explain this to me. The timing makes no sense. If this was credible, shouldn't this have come up during the actual investigation by the FBI when he was going for his to be appointed to the Supreme Court? You would think that if it were credible, then it would have been investigated, especially at a time when things that were not credible were still investigated anyway by newspapers and by the FBI. But that's not the case. And what we do see is just accusations. Accusations by, say, Kamala Harris, who says, I sat through the hearings. Brett Kavanaugh lied to the U.S. Senate. please, Kamala Harris, what is your proof that he lied? There is no investigation every investigation that has been done, there is no proof that Brett Kavanaugh lied to anyone. No proof of that. But she says it because that's how she feels. She feels like he lied to the Senate. She feels like he lied to her because it didn't answer, the answer he gave didn't answer the way she wanted it to. That's not the same thing as proof. That's a feeling. Let's get it right. She goes on to say, and most importantly, to the American people, that he had lied, which there is no proof of that. He was put on the court through a sham process. Let me stop right there. The process that Brett Kavanaugh went through is the exact same process that Judge Bork, that Justice Ginsburg, that Justice Clarence, that Clarence Thomas, Justice Sotomayor, that every Supreme Court justice over the recent modern age has gone through. There is no sham there. It was the same process. The same allegations that could be made against any other justice were being made, and he survived it. There is no sham here. This is the process. She didn't get the result she wanted, Kamala Harris, and therefore she calls it a sham after the fact. You know where we heard that again? The same people who were talking about the results of the 2016 race when Hillary Clinton lost. And then they called it, well, it was a sham election because their person lost. The result they wanted didn't happen. Does that mean it was a sham? No, it just means you lost. And you don't feel well about it. Your emotions are caught up in this. You feel badly about this. That doesn't make it a sham. That's not the definition of the word. It isn't a scam. It just means you didn't get what you wanted. Not the same thing. And let's continue though, because Kamala Harris says in her tweet that his place on the court is an insult to the pursuit of truth and justice. He must be impeached. I'm sorry, Kamala Harris, you're the only one who has a insult to the pursuit of truth. It takes facts. It takes facts to take away someone's rights and their freedoms and their capabilities. You can't just, accusation is not guilt. They are not the same thing. If I accused Kamala Harris tomorrow of sexually assaulting me in my lifetime, does that mean that she must give up her Senate seat? Because I say I feel like she did this, because I feel like it has hurt my life? Does that justify her being removed? Because that is what she is offering. People have made accusations without any proof, and she is saying that that Brett Kavanaugh and others should be punished for that accusation without proof. I'm sorry. She wouldn't want that to be done to her. Why should it be done to any other American? But this goes back to, what are we seeing? Same thing with Beto O'Rourke. Same thing with Andrew Yang. Their feelings are more important than your rights, than your life, than what's going on within the Constitution. They feel it, therefore you should suffer the consequences. Why are we not terrified, folks? Why is America not going crazy about this? And I do understand that most Americans are reacting to this by not reacting to these candidates. That's why Andrew Yang is barely over 2%. Why you see Beto O'Rourke barely at 3%. Why these candidates are not going to make it through the process. Why they are failures, and why people reject them wholesale. And Kamala Harris she peaked and she failed, and she's falling. She is not a favored candidate. Although, as I have said since October of 2018, I do believe that Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren will be vying for president and vice president. and that Democrats will settle on Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris as the president and vice president, whichever position they both get, as an all-woman front versus President Trump. And their entire platform will be based on gender and identity politics, that President Trump is a racist and a sexist, and if you vote for him, you must be racist and sexist as well. That is their message. That is their entire policy. That is everything they have to offer. They feel like it must be true, therefore it is true. And you must be evil by their definition, you must be evil because you don't agree with them. If you do not believe Kamala Harris is correct, if you believe that Brett Kavanaugh faced up against the accusations and there was no proof, and therefore he should not be held liable to some wild accusation, then you must be evil, just like President Trump. It must be evil that would allow someone to say, well, an accusation is more than, for anyone to say that an accusation is not equal to guilt, and that you should be punished for having been accused. You know what? Kamala Harris has been accused of using sex to gain her position politically in life. That's how she became DA in California. That is how she got to ultimately become a senator for California. Now, is that true? Doesn't really matter. According to the rules and the guidelines that Kamala Harris herself is setting for Brett Kavanaugh, for President Trump, for everyone, then the answer is that because she has been accused, it doesn't matter if it's true. She used her sex to gain an advantage. Therefore, she should be punished and she should be removed from the Senate. That's her set of rules. I'm not using those rules. Those are her rules as she is delineating them to Brett Kavanaugh. And if that accusation against Brett Kavanaugh is justifiable without proof, then the accusation I've just made is justifiable without proof. And that's all it takes. And I can see every Democrat who would be listening to this will say, Mike, that's wrong. You can't do that. And I would say, you're right. Then why are you doing it against Brett Kavanaugh? Why are you allowing Andrew Yang to try and buy votes? Why are you allowing Beto O'Rourke to promise to confiscate the property of American citizens with the full force of the government? None of these things are good things. None of these things are actually allowed by the Constitution. Every single one of them violate the rights of individuals in America. And yet Democrats are okay with one side versus another because they feel like it should be okay. Because they feel like it's on their side until they feel like it's not on their side and when it's used against them, I'm sure. And that's a terrifying thought. You know, I can't help but think about this, that when we listen to the words, the tweet of Kamala Harris, when she's out there saying, as she has, that she's sitting through and she's made this declaration, I have to ask you, who's Kamala Harris? She's a senator. So what? That means she's a human being. And senators are not inherently intelligent. Members of Congress are not inherently intelligent. I know most Americans don't get to meet politicians on a regular basis. And through the sheer luck and effort and work that I have done here at No Soundbites Allowed and with the Exceptional Conservative Network, I have been able to meet many, many members of Congress. I have met members of local government and state government for several states and candidates for all of those positions over the last 12 years. And I can tell you, in my experience of all these individuals, of every party that I've met, There are idiots that run for elected office. There are idiots who get elected to elected office. That's Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, libertarians, all of them. Straight down the line. People's IQ do not go up because they got elected. You do not, by osmosis, just assume a greater level of IQ because people voted for you. It doesn't work that way. And yet, we hear Democrats saying, well, it does work that way. We're listening to the Democratic policy of 2020 of this nation going forward saying, well, don't worry. It's going to get better because they got elected, so they must know more. No, you don't. I understand Kamala Harris was a prosecutor. That doesn't mean that she just went into a courtroom and said, I feel like this person's guilty, so they're going away for 20 years. She had to make a case. She had to find proof. She had to prove this to a set of peers, a jury, and show them beyond a shadow of doubt that she was correct. She knows better. To say that she feels that Brett Kavanaugh lied does not mean it is true. To say that Andrew Yang feels like he can pay every American $1,000 does not make it true. To say that Beto O'Rourke feels like people will be safer if he takes away their firearms and their rights to the Second Amendment does not make it true. That's their feelings. Who cares? My feelings don't agree. Let's resolve this by going to the facts. What do the facts tell us? What do the laws tell us? What does the Constitution tell us? Because that is empirical. It has nothing to do with how I feel or how you feel or how some elected official who has a biased opinion feels. Because I guarantee you, every candidate for an elected office, including me when I ran for elected office in 2014, has a bias. They wouldn't be running if they didn't have a bias. And part of that bias is they want to win. And so they will say and do things very often that skews the reality. That is modern politics to a certain extent. And we have to be able to say, you know what? I understand you feel like you should win. You feel like you are right. You feel like you have the right answer. That doesn't mean it is. That is not how we base law and policy based on the gut feeling of someone. I'm sorry, that's just not the way it works. And if we accept that, we fail America. We don't fail. If we believe and fall into this trap that Kamala Harris or Beto O'Rourke or Andrew Yang have set for us, and if we go with that and say, well, we feel like they have the right idea, that they feel like they could be correct, we feel like that will be able to benefit us, and we give them power, we fail. We fail not Kamala Harris or Andrew Yang or Robert O'Rourke. We fail the American people. We fail the American government. We fail the American nation, all 330 million people in that nation, and the generations to come. Because we set a precedent where someone's feeling is more important than the law and the due process and the consequences. And I think that's terrifying. I think that's absolutely terrifying. I can't imagine anything worse than allowing people to run around saying, I feel like you are a criminal, therefore you must be a criminal. You know who I heard say something similar to that? And I'm going to give people a moment to think about it. That's right. If you haven't guessed, one of the most famous people in the world about their feelings about how they feel about the public and how the public should react. And, I don't like to use this example because it's overused, but Hitler felt the Jews and the gypsies and blacks and everyone who isn't Aryan. Well, they were all substandard. They shouldn't have rights. He felt like that was the right answer. And then he tried to make the world live by his feelings. Thankfully, America, along with our allies, fought against that. How about we look at, you can go through time and look at many people. How about Stalin, who felt like he had the right answer for the Soviet Union, that he would move people, thousands, tens of thousands of people from one part of the country to another. So if you happen to be a chut-chut and you were out in Novogorsk, and then he decided you're going to be moved over to Moldavia, if he decided that you were over in Latvia, in Riga, and he decided, well, we're going to move you over to Albania, or over to Georgia, Soviet Georgia. He did that. And if you disagreed with his feeling, if you didn't agree with having your family and generations of your family uprooted and transported thousands of miles away to be dropped into a foreign land that you know nothing about to try and make your life, if you didn't agree with that, well, you had a choice. You could do what he said, or you could be killed. And that was it. Look at the world history. Ask any Russian, anyone who's from Russia or has family from Russia over the last 80 years, and ask them what Stalin did. Ask them the impact of what Stalin did, because Stalin felt like he was right. Stalin felt like this was the answer. And if you didn't like the answer, he used the full force of the government to kill everyone who disagreed. How is that different than what we're hearing from Andrew Yang, Robert O'Rourke, Kamala Harris? In fact, how about Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, even Joe Biden? They're all talking about how they feel like they have the best answer. And that if you don't agree, and here's the big difference, if you don't agree, you are at fault. You are the problem, and you have to be corrected. Because I know everyone who runs for any elected office should feel like they have a good solution. The difference is we're not watching the Democrats, the progressive Democrats, the socialist Democrats say, and if you don't agree, you are the problem, and you have to be corrected. There's a big difference there. It's one thing to say, I think I have a great idea. It's another thing to say, I have a great idea, and if you don't agree, you're going to get punished. You're at fault. You are the failure. I don't agree with that. I don't think anyone should agree with that. I don't think America should agree with that. In fact, we have fought wars, world wars, to prevent people who believed like that. And bravo to America for doing that. And bravo for France and England and the Allies for fighting against that mentality, as we should. Because the world is better when we don't let dictators and we don't let autocrats and we don't let socialists and communists rule our land because of their feelings versus the realities that are out there. And we don't allow them to get away with accusations as if they were proof of guilt. So I've covered a lot of ground here. I've been covering a lot of ground pretty quick here. Not everyone's going to agree with me. And that's fine. You don't have to. See, the joy of being an American, the joy of being able to have this conversation is, I'm not expecting a death squad to walk through my door right now and kill me because I've said I disagree. And you don't have to worry about a death squad coming out if you leave a comment and say, Mike, I disagree with you. Or Mike, I agree with you. And that's because we're Americans. And that's because accusation doesn't equal guilt. because the feelings of elected officials is not sufficient to cause you harm or to take away your property or to take away your rights. But that is up for debate. That is something that is up for question in the 2020 election. Because if we accept Andrew Yang, Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, if we agree with the progressive socialist viewpoint that someone's feelings are more important than fact or law, then yes, one day someone can come to you for simply looking at a YouTube video and they can punish you for it because their feelings about how you looked at something is more important than what you thought about what you viewed, whether you agreed or disagreed. Think about that. Can you imagine what the world would be like if you watched this video and you disagreed with me? Say you disagree. You think I'm absolutely wrong. But because of the mere fact that you watched this, someone is willing to punish you. Doesn't that scare you? And how is that different than what Kamala Harris is saying about Brett Kavanaugh? She feels like the answer is he lied. She feels like there was some corruption in a process that has been going on for decades before she ever got elected to office and before Kavanaugh ever became a judge. But she feels like it. And someone feels like if you saw this video, you need to be punished. What's the difference? You should be scared by that. I am scared by that. I'm scared for the people who disagree with me for that reason. I hope no one ever gets to be accused of watching my video and being said, you're not an American because you saw the video of No Soundbites Allowed. But if we follow this path, that is possible. And I'm not worried about me. Because if they do that, they're coming after me. They're going to come and shoot me in the head. The death squads will come. I already get death threats as it is. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about you. The person who wants to disagree, or even the person who wants to agree, and you remain silent because you're afraid someone is going to say, oh, you saw that, and now you need to be punished. Because there is no difference between someone saying, I'm going to buy your vote, like Andrew Yang, and someone who says, I'm going to use the full force of the government to punish you for having property, and someone who says, like Kamala Harris, that I'm going to punish you because I don't like what you have to say, because I don't like what you stand for I don't like what you believe, I don't like what I think about you. There is no difference there. That is the same mentality. That is the same thought process. It leads to the same result, which is not freedom, which is not greater liberty. It is not independence. It is nothing but wholesale authoritarian regimes that destroy the lives of individuals and destroy their freedom. That's what I believe. Not everyone's going to agree with me. But I really look forward to hearing the argument to what I've just said. I'm really looking forward to hearing people tell me, how am I wrong about this? How is what Andrew Yang did not trying to buy votes implicitly? I'd like to understand how it is not terrifying to hear Beto O'Rourke say that he will use the full force of the government to take away property from law-abiding citizens because he doesn't like it. And the implications of that. Please tell me how you think that's wrong, that I'm wrong for saying that's a terrible idea. Tell me how you think it's wrong that when Kamala Harris says she is upset that someone lied to her without any proof that anyone lied, that you don't feel that's terrifying, that the restriction, the removal of due process to actually have proof of an accusation, how that's no longer important versus the punishment she wants to put out for her personal feelings, tell me how that's not terrifying to you. Yeah, tell me how I'm wrong for saying these are things that we have to worry about. I look forward to that. I want to hear that argument. Please give me that argument because I want to learn. If there is actually an argument there, I want to learn because maybe I got it wrong, but I really don't think so. And I don't think you're wrong for watching this program and saying, hey, found something of value here. I look forward to hearing from you again here on TECN, the Exceptional Conservative Network, on No Soundbites Allowed. I always value each and every comment that you guys make. I'm back again. I'm back in good health. I'm back from Europe. So I'm going to be here. And if you can, drop $1 or $2. Support. If you can't drop the $1 or $2, share it, like it. And as always, regardless of anything else, I look forward to hearing your comments. Folks, I'll talk to you again very soon. But until then, this is Michael Voss. No Soundbites Allowed on the Exceptional Conservative Network. I look forward to talking to you very soon. Thank you, folks. Bye-bye.